And so people started asking me, how are you doing this? How are you enrolling hundreds of clients without sales calls? Like, what is going on over in Mariah world? And people were shocked. They were like, that's not possible. It literally didn't exist. And now you can kind of see it taking over the internet, but like it literally didn't exist. And people told me it was impossible until I did it.
Three, two, one. Welcome to the Campfire Circle. I'm your host, Tanya Bhattacharya, and I empower purpose-driven women in building influential personal brands that drive change and raise revenue. We all talk about getting a seat at the table, but why though? Who wants to sit in a stuffy boardroom anyway? Let's reimagine the ultimate space of leadership as a campfire circle, where we share stories that inspire movements, build brave communities to huddle together with for warmth, and where there is always room. Come sit with us.
Hey, we have the one and only Mariah Coz here today, who happens to be a business architect, a multi-million-dollar mentor and strategist, and of course, the founder of Fearless CEO, a company helping people build businesses that function like ecosystems, cyclical, regenerative, sustainable, and integrated. And over the years, she and her team have supported hundreds of people in growing their online education and group programs, whether they're about watercolor painting, scaling a nonprofit organization, creating inclusive brands, and everything in between, all while setting the standard for empowering enrollment experiences. Mariah, welcome to the Campfire Circle.
Wow, thank you so much. That was the most perfect intro. Appreciate that. Gosh, thank you so much. I'm so honored to be here and just so excited.
So good. Me too. Beyond thrilled. So let's hop into it because I have so much I want to ask you. And I should probably also mention here that I'm an alumni of High Ticket Hybrid, and my group program, the Kindling Collective, came out of that experience with you. So I have so much I want to talk to you about from an inside perspective and beyond. So, but first things first, Mariah, can you share the story of what you have grown through to become the guide you are today?
Wow, thank you. Yes. What have I grown through? That is such a great question, such a beautiful way to phrase that. I feel like I have lived a lot of different lives before becoming a business mentor and have had other businesses that were not about building a business before I started doing this, which I think is essential and I think is important for where I came from. I've done a lot of different things. I've been the singer in a band. I have traveled around the country, made documentaries, like done all sorts of different fun things, dropped out of school to do some projects. And one of the things that I went to a very like non-traditional school sort of education situation for sustainable building, sustainable design. One of the things I became really interested in that I built my first like digital business around was actually around like renovating vintage campers to be off the grid with sustainable materials and like ecosystems and all that kind of stuff. I got really interested in that. This was like way back in 2014 or even earlier than that. And I actually started a blog about it. I started teaching workshops about it. And that turned into my first online course business, which is just totally unrelated to business, totally unrelated to business coaching or anything like that. But I actually built that into a successful business using relationship marketing, like affiliates and joint ventures and things like that. I built that into a successful business. And then, of course, what happens really organically is people start asking you, how are you doing that? Like, how'd you set up your course? How'd you do the tech? How are you marketing it? How do you do these affiliate promos? People just started asking me how I was running this little course that was all about like living in a camper or living in a tiny house, like that type of thing. And before you know it, like I'm starting to partner with people. I'm helping them build their businesses. I was like, you know what? I'll start another blog where I'll talk about the behind the scenes of what I'm doing. And that very quickly took off. I applied a lot of the same principles. Like, again, I was always really focused on relationship marketing and joint ventures and affiliates, like just partnerships and how can we connect with other people who have audiences, just like with podcasts are like such a great way to do that now. And then when I started that business, which is now Fearless CEO, that really took off and eventually did there was a time when I was definitely running both at the same time, which was busy. And then the business side did start to eclipse my first business. And I started focusing on that. And really, that was like, I think in May of 2015, we like launched our first little, mini course for under the what is now the Fearless CEO brand. It used to be called something else. And then here we are now. Gosh, what is it? 7 years later. It's amazing to me that I've been able to stick with this. I mean, we've gone through a lot of evolutions. We've definitely changed our business model many times. My own philosophy has changed many times and will continue to. But it is kind of crazy to me that I've been able to stick with the same business for 7 years when I used to just hop around doing different things every 6 months. So there's something right going on here because I've been able to continue enjoying it for a long time.
Yes, there's something very right happening. And, so first of all, wow, you have been traveling and traversing this road of online business growth and online business ownership way before so many of us. And let me just speak for myself here. I discovered this whole world of like online entrepreneurship during the pandemic as I left my full-time role in 2020 for a, healthcare nonprofit organization. And so you are like the Dumbledore of this online business space. So I just want to really like sit at your feet and ask you some questions.
I love that, by the way, Dumbledore. First time when I'm wearing my fuzzy gray sweater, it really fits in.
Perfect. Perfect. So I would love to get your hot take on this because one thing that's really like hot on my mind right now is that social media is very evidently changing. So at the time of this recording, Twitter is self-exploding. Trust in Facebook continues to drop. People seem to be annoyed at the LinkedIn algorithm. I'm rocking it. I'm steady Eddie on LinkedIn, but who knows? So my question is, how do you see social media continuing to fit into our business ecosystems as we enter 2023?
Yeah, it's really interesting because I do think that there are some people who I see on social media and you can tell that it is so authentic for them and very genuine for them. It feels like they are literally like in their art form when they are on social media. It feels like there are some people who love to create for that type of platform. They love to create that type of content. It comes naturally to them. They're good at it. You can tell that it really does feel like an authentic expression for certain people. However, that person is not me. So I was really late to social media. So even like joining Facebook or Instagram didn't happen years and years after I'd started my business. I think maybe, I don't even know exactly, but it was definitely many years after I had already, been growing this business. Primarily, like I said, I focused on relationships and email list building. So building a community on my email list, which sounds old school, but I still preach it because you don't own the social media platforms, that you create all this content for, and then you're creating your profile, you're getting your followers, and you're doing all this stuff. And then you could just lose your account at any time, which has happened to many of my friends and colleagues. So I always was really focused on emails and really focused on relationships like partnerships. So whether that's affiliates, promoting other people, doing joint venture webinars, doing guest posting, guesting on podcasts or blogs or something like that. And I think that if you love social media, continue doing that, make the most of it, get in while you can, but make sure you have a backup plan, make sure you have your own platform that you own, which is either an SMS text list, getting people onto your SMS list, getting people onto your email list, getting people to follow you on platforms that you own, getting people to follow your podcast. And for me personally, I've never been great at social media, never been consistent, never been focused on it, never really cared. It's always sort of an afterthought to me, like, oh, I'll just found this thing, I'll post it really quick or whatever. But especially right now, like even just in the last few weeks, I've been really thinking now is the time for me to leave social media and focus on those platforms that we own. Not even kind of bridging like, oh, I've got 1 foot there, 1 foot here. I've always focused on our own platforms, but I'm still kind of dabbling in Instagram. It's like, I don't really see the point in dabbling in social media anymore. If you're not going to go all in on it and like own those platforms, then really what's the point? So for me, it's really shifting back to a lot of the things that, grew our business back in 2015 in the first place. Blogging, partnerships, relationships, podcasting, all those things that feel kind of classic, but I think are very timeless. And I do have a training on my website that's actually it's free, and it's like how to run your business without social media, how to transition off social media. We did this whole training for our clients that I decided to make public because I really do think this is a conversation that a lot of people are having. And if you love social media, then stick with it. I'm not going to argue that people need to like get off of it or anything. But if you don't love it, I just don't think that it's the best place you could be spending your energy, even though it feels like you have to. It feels like a requirement at this time. It's really not. And I actually really love and admire people who just opt out of social media altogether.
And they're still building kick-ass businesses because you're right. You're right. I think that everything works if it works for you, but that has to be the most important piece, like taking into account your strengths, your needs, your abilities, your preferences.
Mhm.
And, you gave some really great examples of kind of going back to basics, blogging, owning your podcast space. But something that I was wrestling with was as I built my online group coaching program per high ticket hybrid, I was like, okay, am I going to house this on LinkedIn? Because this is like my whole thing is about LinkedIn. And at first I was worried about hosting it somewhere else because I felt like people weren't going to want to remember one more login. People weren't going to want to check one more place. But I have found that building a space in Circle, which is my platform where I've built, has really been a place to have like deeper, authentic community with a small group who's all on the same journey. And I know that you used to be on Facebook and you've moved to Slack. And when I was at hybrid, I was like always on Slack. I knew I would get my question answered right away. If not by you and your team, a peer who was like in it with me.
Yeah.
So have you found, like, tell me more about how you build community online with your group?
Yeah, I think that this was a really hard choice for us to go off of Facebook. And it's still something I don't know what the perfect platform is. Like Circle is a great platform. There's lots of other ones that have similar functionality. Having your own, again, there's a difference between being on Facebook in a free group where you don't own the platform, but also like you have no recourse. It's free, so you have no recourse. There's no support email for Facebook. Like there's no way to fix something. And I have had the experience of being blocked from commenting in my own community group. So we knew that we had to move off of there when like my coaches and myself got blocked from being able to comment and being able to post in our own groups. And it's just like nothing you can fix. Obviously, you don't own a platform like Circle, but you pay for it. And so there's customer service and you're getting, you're not just going to get kicked off for no reason, right? And there's some way for you to get support. But, for us, we use Slack as a team. So we're in Slack all day, every day as a team talking to each other. So it comes very naturally to us. So choosing Slack was something that, do I think it's the end all be all best thing that everyone should be using? Not necessarily. And I do think if you're going to choose a platform that's off social media, I do think that you need to think about your audience. Like for us, business owners know Slack. A lot of us use Slack as business owners, maybe with teams or something like that. But if you're in a totally different niche, you might be having a community that has never logged into Slack before, never used it. So that probably wouldn't work for you. And you want to pick something that feels like familiar enough or that feels like something they can adapt to. We've been happy with that Slack community, but I do think that I just keep thinking there is the opportunity for something better and something, I just don't know what it is yet though, And I don't know if you kind of feel like that too, where it's like, there are really good alternatives, but I just keep thinking like eventually there'll be something that feels even more organic and natural that people like to engage with.
Yeah, it's amazing how quickly, because, 5 years ago, you were in this world 5 years ago. Like I couldn't have imagined like this evolution of Circle and Mighty Networks and all of these different things that are available to us. So imagine in, 3 to 5 years from now, what will be available. Like we won't even be able to imagine it. Like,
right.
Yeah.
Like waiting for that.
Yeah.
Whatever that looks like. Yeah, I know. But and that's the thing though, is that the main thing, the platform also is not what to get stuck on, right? Like we know the tech, the platform, that's not what's going to make or break your community. The main thing is you have a bunch of people who, like you said, have a common interest or a common goal that they're all working towards. You have people who are on the same journey together, even if they're at different stages on that journey. And that you as the leader are showing up and setting the tone and sort of creating the energy of the space. I think that's really important too. All of those things are going to be what keep people engaging and having fun in there. Not necessarily like, oh, did I pick the right tech platform?
1,000%. And you're right. That's one of those things that we can get stuck on, like, in that loop of perfectionism and procrastination. Like, oh my gosh, if I don't pick the right thing, what's going to happen? But you're right. It's really about your energy, your values,
Sure.
how you come off. So you're so right about that. So, we talked a little bit about the threats of social media, the negative piece of social
Sure.
media, but there is still a piece of social media that I think is really valuable. And it speaks to the piece that you mentioned earlier about relationships, right? And being able to nurture people, being able to be in the DMs with people and send voice notes and like build trust. And, I was really intrigued by the program promise of High Ticket Hybrid, which is really scaling an evergreen high ticket group coaching program without sales calls. And I want to break that down a little bit with you, especially as someone like me who's coming from like the super duper high touch field of fundraising. Because I literally fly to another state to have one meeting with someone, right? Like one first meeting.
Wild.
And yeah, I know. Think about how much like fuel we were wasting. But can you tell me more about this method of providing empowering enrollment experiences without sales calls and maybe how the DMs factor into that?
Yeah, totally. And this is a great point. It's like for years and years, my team has been using social media, but only as a communication channel to have one-on-one conversations asynchronously with people in the direct messages, not as a social media platform to post content on, which I think is very interesting. That's like we have leveraged Instagram and Facebook into a multi-million-dollar business, but not in the way you would think, like totally privately behind the scenes in the direct messages with people, not by posting content or getting comments or, likes or views or anything like that. So totally different approach for us. We essentially use it as an alternative to the reason we started doing this. And, with the DMs specifically is that for a really long time, like 2017 and 2018, probably even more than that, all of my emails were blacklisted. All of my emails went to spam. My email address wouldn't deliver to any inboxes. It was just like this huge tech issue that no one could solve, and it was ongoing. And so I had to come up with an alternative to email, and it was private one-on-one conversations in the DMs, in the direct messages of, Instagram or Facebook Messenger or something like that, as a way to get around the fact that all of my emails were going to spam. So, but kind of back up a little bit, I transitioned to a high ticket program from a self-study course business, literally in like January of 2018, like with the new year. At the end of 2017, I'd been selling, $1,200 self-study courses, like a lot of us had kind of been at that time. And I went to a mastermind meetup in person, such like a powerful experience to be in person with other people who are, maybe a few steps ahead of you, and they're sharing about their business. And I was really inspired by one person that I met there who had a $14,000 program. And I literally at that time, this was back in the winter of 2017, I did not know that people could charge that much. I did not know that was even possible. I didn't know about anything high ticket. I didn't even know that was a world that existed until I talked to that person about their business. And it was like, oh yeah, well, I basically work really closely with my clients and, I help them create this and that. We do all these things together. And I was like, wow, that's so fascinating. So then by January of literally the, December 25th or something into like January of that year, I launched a $10,000 program as my first high ticket program. And those first few months of 2018, I tried my best because everyone told me you have to, in order to sell something at $10,000 or $15,000 or more, you have to do sales calls. That is a requirement. And that's what this particular mentor that I had at the time was telling me. So for like 2 or 3 months, I really did try. I tried to do sales calls. I was so stressed, so tired, so burnt out. I'm a raging introvert, so it really wasn't working for me. I was so anxious, and I would take it really personally because I was doing all the sales calls myself at that time. Take it really personally when someone said no, which I know is like something people need, like I shouldn't have, but I just couldn't get away from it to the point where my team told me, you were going to crash and burn. Like they were like, we're concerned for your mental health. We're concerned for like your, energy, like you're really burning the candle at both ends trying to do these sales calls. And I was like, you know what? Either we're going to shut down the idea of doing a high ticket program. We're not going to do that anymore because sales calls are no longer on the table. So we're either going to shut down this whole program and go back to selling $1,000 courses, or let me try one thing. So I in this like frustration, desperation. I was like, this is the last straw. And if it doesn't work, then we're just going to shut it down and move on and do something else. But in that frustration, I created this new system of enrolling people one-to-many in a high-ticket program using a combination of trainings and like a webinar style training, but it's something like a webinar you've never seen before, using the process of intentional follow-up via both emails and direct messages and SMS. And it was really just something I put together at the last minute to be like, either this is going to work or we're going to not do this at all anymore. And it freaking worked. We enrolled 30 people over the course of 3 days into our $10,000 program back, at the beginning of 2018 using this process. And that weekend that we did that, like literally changed the trajectory of our entire business, because I was like, oh crap, did I just figure that out? Like, did we just actually do that? And then it was even more shocking because I'm like an evergreen person. I like to make a live recording once and then get that whole system on evergreen automated. So then I put all that stuff that we had done during that 3-day live promo, I put it all into an automated evergreen thing. And it was working on evergreen. People were enrolling into the program. They're watching the recorded video. I was answering their questions asynchronously in the direct messages, and they were just enrolling into the $10,000 program. And then we enrolled hundreds and hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of people that way. And then eventually, of course, as what always happens, people start asking, how are you doing that? And so people started asking me, how are you doing this? How are you enrolling hundreds of clients without sales calls? Like, what is going on over in Mariah world? And people were shocked. They were like, that's not possible. It literally didn't exist. And now you can kind of see it taking over the internet, but like it literally didn't exist. And people told me it was impossible until I did it. And then, of course, that turned into people asking, how are you doing this? So I started out by teaching a very small group of people as like a little tiny, pilot thing. I started teaching a couple of people how our whole system works for selling high ticket without sales calls. And we use a combination of pre-recorded assets. We use a combination of automation and that personal touch of direct messaging with people using either their Instagram profile or social Facebook Messenger or something like that. And that then took over our whole business as well. That blew up. It started with a handful of people in a little pilot round. And then by the end of that year, that was in 2020 when everything went crazy. By the end of that year, we had like 300 people in high ticket hybrid, which I always thought it would be this tiny little, like, oh, maybe 10 people. I'll teach it to a group of 10 people. It'll be super quiet. It'll be like my secret little side project. And it just blew up and it took over our whole business and it became what we were known for. And so, yeah, it's really interesting because it's like, I don't like to, be on social media creating content for that every day, but we have really figured out how to use those social media direct messages to truly connect with people. And what we do in that process is, yes, we can chat back and forth with text, but one thing, like you said, Tanya, that's so powerful is voice messages on those platforms. So Facebook Messenger, you can use WhatsApp, you can use Voxer, you can use LinkedIn Messenger, you can use Instagram Messenger, but using those voice message feature just to send a little 30 to 60 second voice message to someone, usually we discover that you can enroll a $10,000 or $20,000 client with a 60-second voice message without a 60-minute phone call. So it's just as impactful and a lot more convenient to be asynchronous, not just for you as the coach and the CEO, but also for your clients and customers. People are really busy right now. Everyone has Zoom fatigue. They don't want to get on an hour-long call just to learn about like what your program includes. It's just kind of a waste of everyone's time.
Hey, if anything you're hearing today inspires you to get more visible as a go-to trusted voice for your audience and drive change towards your deeper mission, I've got something for you. LinkedIn is my favorite place to share my stories and build relationships with my co-conspirators and brand new friends. So I put together a free resource with 14 prompts to create your next post on LinkedIn. Take all the guesswork out of what to say and just start building your impact and influence. Be sure to tag me in your post so I can come by, cheer you on, and amplify your message. You can find those free prompts in the show notes. Okay, back to the episode.
100%. That's amazing. And the best innovations really do come out of frustrations. And I wouldn't have believed that it had worked had I not gone through a program before I joined High Ticket Hybrid that used your model.
Oh,
You
yeah.
know, yeah, I don't think I would have believed that it worked, but you're right. Not just for the coach, but for the person going through the application process. You're able to fit in the process into the pockets of your day and respond when you have time. I'm also a raging introvert. I'm like a deep INFJ, and I don't actually want to.
INTP.
Okay. I see you. No wonder we're vibing. But,
Yes.
like I don't want to go on a potentially high pressure sales call. I don't want that.
People are skeptical. First of all, they can't even find the time in their schedule, and then they have to show up at a certain place. It's just a barrier to them enrolling, and people are really skeptical of what those calls, because they've had bad sales experiences before. And I don't blame people for not wanting to get on sales calls and thinking they're going to get trapped,
Right.
I mean, I just never want someone to feel that. I give people all the information. It's laid out. We put it in video format. We put it typed out on a page. We put it in visuals. We give people all the information they need. We say, hey, we're here. We're available for you to ask us any questions that you have. We're always here to chat with you. But there's no pressure. We're not going to make you pay on a phone call or anything like that, which I think is wild that that's the standard right now.
Totally. And it really is empowering. Like right now, actually right before we were recording this, I've been going back and forth with a potential client on Loom. We're just sending back Loom videos.
Oh, I love
and
that.
Yeah, and she's like, oh my God, this is so easy and fun. And she lives in Israel. So it's much more easy for us to communicate that way versus finding a time. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
That's the thing is people, it's just such a barrier to time zones. People are busy. There's really no reason in the modern age that you should have to schedule a call to get the information and to have those conversations. And like you said, I think especially for a lot of our clients with chronic illness or disabilities or childcare, right? Just a lot of people have inconsistent childcare. It's not possible for them to book multiple sales calls a day. And so, like you said, this allows you to be in the pockets of your day. If you have a quiet moment, if you have 2 minutes here and there, you can just respond back to your messages. I mean, a lot of people are like, oh yeah, I'm just on my couch watching movies with my kids, responding to my DMs, and that's it.
Totally. It's so true. Gosh, and as I think about my experience enrolling in High Ticket Hybrid, I remember DMing back and forth a lot with Cami, and her feedback was so I wouldn't even know I was in a sales process because it was just so helpful. She was just providing so much helpful information. And, and all the content that I'd consumed or watched or read up until that point, I'd gone to your virtual conference months before that, maybe even last year before I decided to join. It just made it an easy yes for me. And I had just wanted to have a little bit of human interaction before making a large investment like that. And so
Totally.
I'd love to talk to you a little bit about messaging, content, and storytelling, because you have this champagne client concept. And I know people look at your client list, some of whom have been on the show, like Tatiana O'Hara and Claire Pelletreau and Jordan Gill, and ask you, I know, I love them, and ask you how are you attracting this type of client? How are you doing that? Is it a setting on your ads manager? Is it what are you doing? So I know you have a mini course on champagne client messaging, which we'll link in the show notes, but can you just tell us a little bit more about what this concept is all about?
Not only can we link to it in the show notes, but remind me after, and we can put it into the show notes. I will give everyone in your audience a coupon code so they can get it for free.
Amazing.
Normally it's $300, but we will get you all a coupon code. It will have some sort of deadline on it just for logistics reasons, but we can definitely get you a custom coupon code, and that would be super fun. Because I think everyone needs this. Everyone needs this training. It's so, so good. It's one of my favorite little mini courses that we've created. So yeah, I mean, this is a question we get a lot. And I would say the champagne client concept, it's not something that I was aware of until years and years of just doing it organically, which is kind of how a lot of things go for me, where I don't really know what I'm doing until after. And then I can look back and kind of break it down and try to put a framework around it and be like, oh yeah, I guess I do have a process. I thought I was just doing that intuitively, right? But a lot of people would ask, how do you target your Facebook ad so that it only lands in front of people who are ready to invest or people who are the right fit for your program? Or how do you, attract all these clients? How are you creating content or whatever that's attracting all these high-level people? It's not a Facebook ad setting. It's not anything like that. It is a very specific process of speaking to the highest level client that you can imagine. And really all this requires, and this is what I teach in the Champagne Client course, is all this requires is courage. That's the only thing you have to do. And the problem is that a lot of people are walking around creating content for the absolute newbies and for people that they don't even really feel aligned with serving or working with, to be honest. But so many people are walking around saying things like, well, this is just who I have in my audience, so I need to create content for them. Or, I just always attract people who aren't ready for my programs. Or, I just need to create content for the newbies because that's the biggest pool of people, right? That's how I'm going to attract the most amount of people. Well, if you keep doing that, you get stuck in this cycle of creating content for not your ideal clients, but people who aren't really ready for your program. And then you wonder why you only have people in your audience who aren't ready for your program. And then you're frustrated that everyone's telling you they're not going to invest in your program. And it just keeps going around and around. You have to have the courage and the belief to be like, the thing that I had to realize is that there are a lot of very high level clients kind of sitting, waiting in the wings, lurking in luxury is what I call it. They're like lurking. They're not commenting. They're not responding. They're not the loudest. They're not commenting on all your content. So you think that you have to create content for all the newbies because those people are commenting and telling you X, Y, Z. It's all the people who are just silently watching you. They're literally waiting for you to put something out there that actually speaks to them and resonates with them. And so in the Champagne Client content, you'll see how we really shift around. Like one example was how someone with no experience and no resume and no topic or something can get a speaking gig. Basically, I'm like, you're just creating this piece of content for like the worst client. Why would you do that? Versus someone saying to me behind the scenes, I really wish I could work with famous authors to turn their books into speaking gigs and speaking talks or whatever. And I'm like, okay, so why don't you change it from how to book a speaking gig with no experience and nothing to your name and like everything is bad. Instead, why don't you say like how to turn your best-selling book into a successful speaking gig? You know what I mean? Like, why don't you call that out and speak to someone who's at the top of their game or at the top of their niche or, those dreamy clients that you want to work with. And we just go in and overhaul people's content just in that way over and over and over again so that they can really shift. It really is fundamentally a shift from like speaking to like lack and scarcity and fear and like always just calling out like pain points and like, instead of being like, you're suffering so much, this is what you need. What if you just spoke to like the people who are your dream clients and are successful in some way, but they need what you have? Again, if you want to work with famous musicians or you want to work with best-selling authors or whatever, why aren't you saying that? Like, why aren't you writing articles and like content for that? And we have hundreds of testimonials from our clients being like, I posted my first piece of Champagne Client content and a celebrity just booked into my program. Like all of these Champagne clients, these level 10 high level clients, they are sitting in your audience. They're following you. They're watching you. You don't know it because you're not speaking to them. But the minute that you put out a piece of content that speaks to them and that's designed for them, it's like they magnetize, they like come out of the woodwork and start coming towards you. You will be shocked at the shift that can occur, but it does require courage because a lot of people are just like too scared to do that because they don't think that they're good enough to work with those people. Or they just think, oh no, I just always attract newbies who can never invest in my program. So we're just going to keep talking to them. But you got to make that shift.
I am so obsessed, I just have to say, and you just made me think of something, which is the field that I came out of, which is the nonprofit field, the social impact sector, which I know that, some of my friends like Brooke, they have gone through your program and they work in this field too. so many of us in the nonprofit field, and I will include myself in here because I have fell into this thing as well, is we have inherited the scarcity mindset that festers in the nonprofit/social impact space. And so we will put out content like how to get your first grant with no money and no contacts and no whatever.
Yeah.
But instead, it's like, no, like nonprofits are so abundant in so many ways, right? And they're getting 6-figure gifts, 7-figure gifts all the time. So it's like, how can you speak to that level, right? Like, how can you put out a piece of content that's like, get your first 7-figure contribution by leveraging your fundraising committee, right?
Yeah. Right. And it doesn't even have to be money too, right? Because if you think about what is like the ideal situation there, it could be like they have a really strong story in a huge social media base, but they haven't like, oh, there's this movement and they have this huge social media following and the leader is super inspiring and they have this amazing story, but like they haven't turned it into money yet, right? So it could even just be, what are those foundational things that your ideal dream client has in place? Like how to leverage your, hundreds of thousands of social media followers into donations for your social impact project. So there's so many ways that your champagne client is not just they have a lot of money. That's not what it is. It's they have these features or these attributes or these like foundations about them that make them like such a perfect fit to come in and leverage those things in your program. And I think that's so true, where people just think, a lot of artists come in with that mindset as well, where they have had that like starving artist kind of mentality. And yes, a lot of people in the nonprofit sector, they're like conditioned to like just assume that it's really, really hard to, get contributions or to have people spend money or something. But what if there's someone out there who's like, gosh, we have so much money in our fund, we don't even know what to spend it on. And why not speak to them?
Oh, that is such a great point. That is such a good distinction. I'm so glad you brought that up. And yes, thank you for the gift of the coupon for your Champagne Client Kit. And what I want everyone to do once they download that coupon is like put a piece of Champagne Client content out there and just see who comes, because you're right. People are lurkers, especially like my thing happens to be LinkedIn. And especially on LinkedIn, people don't always comment or engage because they know their whole like social network is going to see what they're up to. Yes. And they don't always want that. So they are lurking in luxury. You're so right.
Yes.
You're so
They're just
right.
like waiting. And that's the thing. It doesn't matter how much stuff you post out there. You might get 0 comments, but you get 10 DMs from perfect fit clients.
Yes.
They're not commenting. They're not really necessarily engaging in the typical sense. But like you said, it might look like crickets on the outside, but you're getting really high quality clients in your DMs privately that actually turn into clients. That's the main thing.
That's exactly right. It does indeed go down in the DMs. Like that is where a lot of this magic happens. You're spot on. So I want to ask you a little bit and touch upon, you talked about courage, right? You talked about because I think you're right. One of the biggest things stopping people from speaking to their champagne client once they know about the concept and, make those tweaks internally is feeling impostery. Like, can I actually support that level of client? And I think there's many different types of ways that we have to adopt fearlessness and courage as we navigate this world we live in. So tell me more about like Fearless CEO. What does that mean to you? Like, tell me why you rebranded your company to Fearless CEO.
Yeah, it's so much more than just like a name, which sounds so cheesy, I know, but it really was a time for me. And this was at the end of last year. The name, the rebrand, everything happened in like less than a month. It was like I had the idea, I went out and I bought the trademark from other people. Someone else had like a defunct old URL and like they hadn't been using it for a long time. So I like bought the trademark. I went and did all this stuff. We did the rebrand. It was like, a month from like a new idea to like having it be done. I was really in a phase of becoming super aware. Like I deal with imposter syndrome all the time. I have anxiety. I have depression. I'm always very open about mental illness. And I just can tell when I am the biggest thing holding me back. Like I'm just hyper aware. I'm the biggest thing holding me back. I am in my own way. And I was like, journaling and thinking about things. And I was like, imagine if I could just suspend my fear that like grips my heart every day because I'm so anxious about everything. Imagine if I could just suspend that fear for 24 hours. What would I do in those 24 hours? And I started doing that and like practicing and imagining and then being like, well, okay, well, I'll just post that thing and see what happens. Or I'll just send that email to that person and pitch myself and see what happens. Or I'll just redesign that thing and see what happens. You know what I mean? Like, okay, so I'm just going to suspend my fear. And if I was fearless for 24 hours, what could I do? And I kept doing that over and over and really exploring what that looked like. And I was just became very like fascinated with how differently I was operating day to day out of fear. And especially, I think the irony of this is that this was happening as our business has experienced explosive growth. Like this is like at the most successful we've ever been. Everything looks like it's the most perfect thing. And as that's happening, we got the Inc. 5000. We're like fastest growing companies in America. Like all these things are happening. And as that's all happening, I'm just getting increasingly and increasingly anxious because like that's a lot of pressure.
Wow.
And so my fear has increased as the success increased because I was so afraid that now we had achieved this level of success that I was going to mess it up. I was going to ruin it. I was going to, break it. I was going to do something wrong. Like I just like started like just tightening up as the success increased. I just started feeling like more and more anxious. And so the Fearless CEO was really my way of working through that and finding a title, like an identity that I could embody and step into. And a lot of times I have to think about it. I have to choose every morning. I have to choose, am I going to show up as a Fearless CEO today? Or is my anxiety going to get the best of me? And sometimes it does. I'm not a Fearless CEO every day, for sure, no. But when I thought of it, it just, popped into my brain and I thought, that is an identity and a word that I can embody. And it gives me almost like an alter ego to say, if I was going to show up as a Fearless CEO today, how would I act? What would I do? What decisions would I make? How would I communicate with people? What is Mariah? And it's different for everyone. There's no like definition of like who it is and what it is, but how is Mariah going to show up as Fearless CEO today? And I needed that. Like I desperately needed that at the end of last year because I was just like consumed with the fear of making a mistake or messing it up or like people being mad at me. And I needed that reminder and I needed that identity to give me the opportunity and just the space to like show up fearlessly again. And then we like rebranded and this year has been so different because we've been experimenting a lot, been doing things that, again, just really trying to be like, well, if I was being fearless, I just freaking go for it. I don't care what people say. I'm going to try it, So I feel like it's just given me an avenue to do that. And it has changed the way we operate. It has changed the way we teach. It has changed the content that we teach our clients because operating like a Fearless CEO really does touch like every component of our business. It's so much more than just like a cute brand name. It's really has like shifted how we teach and how we communicate with clients and how we operate at every level.
Thank you for sharing that with me. I really love that. And the concept of embodying a higher vision or embodying like the leader that you are trying to become to create the goals that you are setting for yourself is something that I've really been thinking about. So thank you for bringing that up. I think that's huge. And what I love about that too is it's a practice. Like you're not a Fearless CEO every single minute of every single day, but you can recalibrate yourself and make a choice to say, okay, what would a Fearless CEO do in this moment, right? And lead from that place. I love that. Okay, I have like 2 more questions for you. Actually, I have like a billion more, but I'm just going to focus on 2. And I want to backtrack all the way to where I mentioned your program promise, and we talked about the without sales call piece, but the other part of it is about an evergreen program, right? Scaling evergreen program, meaning folks can join at any time. And we, as the business owner, like we don't have to rely so much on live launches, which just really kind of emotionally take a lot out of me, right? As an introvert, et cetera.
Yeah. Yeah.
So how do you see an evergreen program really being able to build a healthy ecosystem for your business?
Yeah, I think that, in an ideal business, even if you sell courses, if you sell high ticket coaching, whatever, you sell low ticket, virtual digital products, I think that having evergreen mixed with live launches is the ideal situation. I'm really not an either or person. And that's actually why our program is called High Ticket Hybrid is I take a hybrid approach to everything. And there's this very like black and white thinking out there. Like you either have to do this or that. Like you have to do, sales calls or no sales calls, or like you have to do launches or evergreen. And like one is evil and one is good. And there's just, that's true for like so many different things in this industry that are like, mindset or strategy. It's like one or the other is the winner. And I'm just like, everything working together is kind of your best bet. Like you're going to have more resiliency and sustainability if you have a hybrid approach to your program delivery. Like it's not that coaching is good and courses are bad. It's that they're both great. And if you combine them, they're even better. So there's like so many things that I just believe in the hybrid power of doing multiple things together. And that's what really that's why I use that word ecosystem, is when you have a evergreen program where people are applying for your coaching program year round, you're accepting applications all throughout, the year, and people will have a established like evergreen window to enroll in to make their decision. And usually sometimes people will have they might have some sort of bonus or something like that during that enrollment window. And then also having maybe once or twice a year, having a live promotion or a live enrollment or a live launch, whatever you want to call it. That is a nice combination because they actually work together. And when you do go to do a live enrollment or live launch once or twice a year, all the people who had applied for and gone through your evergreen funnel during the year leading up to that, they're warmed up and ready to join at your next live promo. So it really does help to have both. And they work really well together. They actually kind of feed on each other and work together really beautifully. Having evergreen for me is just like a sense of calm. It's like a sense of calmness. I will say that evergreen is, it's not passive, it's proactive. It's almost like when you're on evergreen, the beauty of it and what I love is that every single day I can wake up and say, I could make a sale today. You know what I mean? I'm always like, it's kind of cool that like my program is on evergreen. I could like post something, I could send an email, get an applicant, and then enroll someone by the end of the day. And that magic is just open to me. I'm just always kind of like, evergreen feels like this open possibility of like magic can happen at any time. I could make, you're just kind of like, I might make a $10,000 sale today. Who's to say I won't? And I love that. Like that possibility is exciting for me. And it really gets me thinking, just gets me excited, that anything is possible every day on evergreen. There's no limit. There's no rules. And the opposite of that, of just having only live launches. Now, I'm not dissing on live launches because I love them. They're part of the ecosystem. But if you only have that, then in between your live launches, there's none of that possibility and magic of like, oh, what if I like wake up to a sale tomorrow? That would be cool. Instead, you're just like, no, that's literally not possible. Like there's no link, right? So I just think having evergreen I don't think of it as like passive income or passive sales. I think of it as like open possibilities and that anything is possible and you can go out there and make your own magic any day, right? You can go out there, you can follow up with those 10 leads from last week. Go and send an email, post on social media, do whatever you want to do, drum up some interest and let's get this thing going,
Absolutely, especially for people who are consistently kind of like showing up as, with their thought leadership out in the world. Like if you're on a podcast, if you're on a panel, like you can be speaking about, the work that you do. And somebody in that audience might be the perfect fit for you right now. And they have that opportunity that day to begin working with you versus waiting for your whatever 3 months from now. So I love that.
Yes. Yeah. And it's really allowing people to access the support they need when they need it most, because it most likely won't line up with your, if you have a launch schedule, if you help people, I sometimes say the example of like helping someone get through like a difficult personal time. Someone's going to come to you. They're going to be like, I need help today. I just discovered your method. I just discovered your website. Like, I need your help. And are you going to tell them like, no, you really need support, but like you have to wait 6 months? And depending on what you teach, it's just as urgent for people. It really is. It's something that they need right then and there. And so just giving people the opportunity to access that support and coaching from you is, I think, a kindness that you can offer to people.
Yeah, 100%. 100%. I love that. And what I loved about it too is I was worried about, because I've heard of evergreen, like I've heard these terms thrown around, and I was worried that it was going to be a sense of like having to create this fake urgency around like you have to join right now. And it was never that. It was very much a sense of like the world is abundant. Like we can drive people towards a decision that is best for them and, be in right relationship with them from day one.
Yeah.
Right. So I love that.
Yeah. Internal urgency is the most important thing. Like, countdown timers and expiring bonuses, all that stuff doesn't matter and isn't the real thing. The real thing is, are you communicating the value of your offer in a way that people are like, this is a priority for me because I care about it, because it feels right, because I'm excited, because I see, why would I, if they read your copy or they see your video and they're like, why would I wait 6 months? That would be crazy for me to wait 6 months when 3 weeks from now, I could be shifting my mindset. I could be shifting my life. I could be having that, like this whole new experience. You want people to be driven by that positive, I'm running towards this wonderful outcome that I'm so excited about. I can't wait to get started, rather than you're going to miss out. You have to join right now. Blah, blah, blah. Your life is going to be terrible if you don't join. Like, that's not the vibe. The vibe is just, hey, how soon do you want to start experiencing shifts? Because it could be happening in like a week or two if you join, So just getting people excited about what could happen instead of like this bad punishment type of thing is, how we like to approach things. And then always just, again, it's an open environment of what makes it empowering is like giving people the information, being there to answer their questions, but you're not pressured one way or the other.
Exactly. They're fully in the driver's seat. Yeah, I love it. I love it. So I could obviously talk to you all day long. It's been so much fun, but I'm going to ask you the final question, which I ask everybody on this podcast, which is really, what is your big dreamy vision for the future, either for yourself or for the people that you serve?
Yeah, this is such a good question. Should have thought about this beforehand. I just really want people, for me right now, and for what I want to talk about this more. I don't really I don't share content consistently, but what I do is I do a virtual conference 2 or 3 times a year where I basically share all my thoughts in one day in a big giant like thing. And so one of the thoughts I've been thinking lately that I would like to share is that, again, having grown our business very quickly over the last 2 years, hitting the Inc. 5000, and we hit the $5 million mark, and we just like really grew very fast, and really making sure that that is what people want from, like, just kind of really assessing. What I want for everyone is that they assess what is the best business level or level of scale or design for them. And that's why we love the hybrid business model, because hybrid is customized to each person. Someone's hybrid business could be courses plus coaching. Someone's hybrid business could be low ticket plus high ticket. Some people's hybrid business is something totally, it's done for you plus coaching. It's like all these different options, and really making sure that everyone is getting in tune with what their goals are, unique to them, which I know sounds so cheesy, but again, like, please don't build your business based on someone else's goals or what you saw on social media, or guilt that you're far behind and everyone else is going faster than you. Like, there's a lot of hard stuff that comes with scale or that comes with growth. Like I explained to you, I felt just so anxious and terrified the more successful we became, because I was like, there's so many things that I could mess up now. And like, just wanted to kind of put that in your ear of like, for everyone who's listening and for the people that I serve, that like, I really want them to have this most beautiful business that is designed for them and not based on other people or, fake arbitrary goals that they kind of picked up from the internet or something like that. So just really want everyone, including myself, to continue to refine and realign with what that looks like, and making sure you're regularly checking in with yourself to make sure like, hey, am I am I on the road that I meant to be on? Like, oh yeah, it seems like I took a detour a few exits back and I need to get back on, right? So I think that's important.
That's beautiful. And otherwise, what's the point, right? Because we build businesses to have freedom and, create our own pathways. And like, it has to be aligned to what it is that we truly want. And I think that's a beautiful vision. I love that. This has been so great, Mariah. Thank you for joining and sharing your wisdom and your stories and just sharing all the gems. I really appreciate you.
Thank you so much for having me, Tanya. This has been so fun. And I love the way you ask questions and the discussions we've got to have. We went really deep today and I appreciate that.
Well, when you're with me, we're going deep. There's no other way about it. Thanks, Mariah.
Thank you.
What'd you think? Leave us a review on Apple Podcasts, or even better, reach out and let me know through lumosmarketing.co. Yes, that's Lumos, as in the illumination spell from Harry Potter. Because when you shine, magical things happen. You can get social with me on LinkedIn, and of course, check out the show notes to stay in touch with our guests. Let's talk soon.